2, and 1. It is time to tie a bow on this Big Ten basketball season. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Locked On Big Ten podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Ben Stevens. It is Friday, April 2nd, and on today's episode, we take one final look back on the Big Ten basketball year, the regular season, the postseason struggles, and some of our favorite memories from this past year in the Big Ten basketball slate. And one of my favorite people in the entire world is here to look back with me. It is Lucy Rohden, the one they call Lucy Sports Jokes. She's a sports media personality for Wave TV, a big announcement possibly coming out today. Lucy is all over the place, one of the brightest, smartest, funniest minds in all of the Big Ten Conference. So Lucy Rohden, I'm so glad to have you here to take one final look back at this Big Ten basketball season.
Man, you always hype me up. My ego is huge every time I come on this podcast.
I mean it sincerely, though. I mean it sincerely. You are, I think, the funniest follow I've ever met through Big Ten Twitter. No doubt about it.
I'm going to cry. That's so nice.
Don't cry. See, that's what we have to do, though. We don't cry because it's over. We smile because it happened. But if you think about the NCAA tournament, there was a lot of tears, and most of them very sad tears. It was an interesting Big Ten basketball season, historic regular season within the conference, not living up to expectation once we got to downtown Indianapolis in the NCAA tournament, but still some great memories along the path. So I ask you first, Lucy Rohden, before we dive into the nitty-gritty of the regular season, the postseason, and beyond, how will you remember this Big Ten basketball season?
What sucks is I don't think I'm going to remember it as fondly as I should. You know, I don't want to call it a colossal failure, but honestly, it kind of was a colossal failure in the postseason. I personally, my bracket was so Big Ten heavy. I full send bought into all of it, and it turns out none of it was true. And I think the Big Ten was competitive and it was good, but the lack of, having the games, the non-conference games early in the season kind of inflated how we viewed the Big Ten. And it sucks because this was the year that the Big Ten was supposed to win a national title, and it's not going to happen. And it should have been Iowa. And it's just everything's sad.
See, as my Big Ten bracket, my bracket was so Big Ten focused as Big Ten Ben that I didn't even check it after that first Friday round of 64 action because I had both Ohio State and Purdue meeting in the Elite Eight in the South region with Purdue going to the Final Four. So after that was done, after the first night of the full round of 64 action, I haven't looked at my bracket. I don't think it's very good, but who cares about our bracket? So Lucy, I have to ask on top of that, you mentioned this was supposed to be the year with so many great teams heading into the NCAA tournament. It seemed at least there was a good shot for a Big Ten team to snap the streak of a Big Ten team not winning a national championship in 21 years. Is there an issue that you can point to overall that you think there's a reason that this streak has continued on for more than 2 decades?
I don't know if there's like an issue specifically. I think that it's going to change with Michigan within the next few years just because of the energy, the life, and the recruiting class that Juwan Howard is bringing to Michigan. I think if there's anywhere that the Big Ten has lacked is that it doesn't have, kind of the star power that, a Duke, UNC, Kentucky have. I mean, you could count Michigan State, but I kind of feel like they've fallen off a little. It's just, I don't think the Big Ten has the energy and the recruiting power that these other conferences and schools have, even though, the Final Fours will, Houston, Gonzaga, and UCLA, obviously, but I'm talking about. Yeah, we don't talk about UCLA, but I think it's a valid point. I think the style of play, the flow of games times throughout the Big Ten season when teams are beating up on each other constantly, by the time they get to the end of the road and get ready for the NCAA tournament, they might be a little shell-shocked, and it might be like, holy crap, we just went through a gauntlet. Now we have to ramp up to try to win 6 games in a 2.5-week span. I agree with you, but I think the energy from a certain amount of teams are there, and Michigan, who made it to the Elite Eight, the only Big Ten team to get out of the opening weekend, does bring in the best recruiting class in the country next year with 3 McDonald's All-Americans. So the future very bright for Juwan Howard, who in his second year probably will be the national coach of the year, who led Michigan to the Elite Eight. Let's look at the regular season, though, because it was historic. And I think we can compartmentalize a little bit here with how good the regular season was and how bad the postseason was, with trying to appreciate at least the fun times we had in the regular season. Lucy, there was a time in late December when the Big Ten had 9 teams in the AP Top 25, which was a historic record for the Big Ten Conference, the most teams ever out of the Big Ten in the AP Top 25, the most of any league since 2011 when the Big East did it. So when you look back on the regular season, what will you remember? What will you think about as a highlight from the Big Ten regular season campaign? I think this year is the most like star power, recognizable names that the Big Ten has seen in forever. You got Luka Garza, Kofi Cockburn, Io DeSunmu, Hunter Dickinson. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on. And normally the Big Ten doesn't feel like that. It doesn't feel like it has these like marquee names the way, a Duke or UNC has. And I think that was what made it so special is, you have Luka Garza, who is breaking records left and right. You have Io DeSunmu, who's just one of the most interesting players in college basketball to watch, even though I don't want to say that. We got beef. But I think the quality of players we had this year was better than we've seen in the Big Ten, and I can't even tell you how long.
It was so disappointing for me because when you look at the metrics and Kenneth Pomeroy, who is the smartest mind in all of college basketball, throughout most of the season, the Big Ten was encroaching on historic territory, trying to catch the 2004 ACC as the best overall efficiency metric for a conference since Ken Pom started tracking that in 2002. The 2004 ACC was at plus 20.32. Heading into the NCAA tournament, the Big Ten was right on the brink of that, maybe even surpassed it. Now, Lucy Rohden, can you guess where it is? Can you guess? Take a wild guess.
It's not good.
No, it's not. It's plus 18.61, which is now third best all time behind both the 2004 ACC and the 2017 Big 12. That was plus 19.81. So it seemed heading into the NCAA tournament, the Big Ten was primed to make a run, but I think that transitions us nicely into these postseason struggles. 8 of the 9 teams did not get out of the opening weekend. Overall in the NCAA tournament, the Big Ten was 8-9, and 5 of those round of 32 losses came by an average margin of 12.6 points averaged across those 5 losses for the Big Ten. Why did it go so poorly, Lucy Rohden? Why? You were there in Indianapolis. You were boots on the ground. Tell me what happened. Was it something in the water, the food? What happened in Indy?
I thought the water was great there. Food
good.
was average. Nothing special.
Wait, hold on a second. The place that they have St. Elmo's Steakhouse and Harry and Izzy's is just average food, Lucy Rohden is saying?
Yeah, well, I don't know where I went. Definitely wasn't those places. I'm trying to think of where I went. I went to Culver's.
I've actually never had Culver's, and I've lived in the Midwest for like 2 years, and I've never had Culver's. The steak burger, right?
Yes, but the cheese curds are phenomenal. And when I went to Culver's, this is another side note. I went to Culver's after my tire popped and it messed up my car because the roads in Indiana are terrible, and I was out $700. So I was like, I'm going to Culver's to get cheese curds to make me feel better. Went to Culver's, drove back. They forgot to give me my cheese curd, so I had to drive back because I was so upset. So
with a bum car too, that's a very tough situation. All after Iowa lost to Oregon, right? I mean, this is a terrible sequence.
It was a terrible day for me, and oh God, you see why the food was bad. That's why I think it was just a negative experience the last day, but for the most part, I had a good time. But your original question, I think, was why the Big Ten didn't do well in those opening round games. There is no, I knew when I saw that bracket that Loyola was going to cause major problems for Illinois. Mm-hmm. Loyola was not an 8 seed. They just weren't. And and I think that, it does come down to like the Big Ten does beat themselves up, during this regular season, the style of basketball you play, like you mentioned earlier. But I also think like Iowa should not have faced Oregon in the round of 32. Illinois should not have faced Loyola in the round of 32. We kind of got screwed seeding wise. And then Ohio State just blew it. Purdue blew it. But the rest of us, I feel like we really, we got screwed. And like there should be no reason that Iowa is meeting the Pac-12 champion and the round of 32. That just shouldn't happen, but whatever.
I mean, there was 3 losses out of the Big Ten in that opening weekend. The first 4 game for Michigan State against UCLA, the devastating upsets of Purdue and Ohio State, but then the other 6 teams that were in the big dance won and looked pretty good in doing so. So there seemed to be some hope. And then the round of 32, everything just came crashing down again. 5 losses out of the Big Ten in the round of 32 by an average of almost 13 points. So for me, it's not that the Big Ten just sucked. It's how badly they sucked. Like they didn't lose games. They looked terrible in doing so. And I think it really is disappointing because we had seen these teams start to hit their stride even at the end of a very tough Big Ten slate. Illinois had won 15 of 16 games before facing Loyola Chicago. Iowa's defense had skyrocketed up from 120th in the country to top 60. And yet, again, we saw some of the demises of these teams we had seen earlier on. Illinois struggling in the first half and never being able to sustain a run. Iowa's defense was exposed against Oregon. So for me, it just sucked to see the teams have their weaknesses exposed on a national level in the round of 32 and to go out as poorly as they did. Ohio State has had trouble closing games all year. They were 9 of 18 from the free throw line against Oral Roberts. Purdue I think Purdue was an anomaly because they just looked terrible
Yeah,
all 40 minutes,
that was
like
horrible.
so bad. And then they get the time bucket to send it into overtime. And you think finally there's momentum. Jaden Ivey had been fantastic. Trevion Williams started to come on, and they get absolutely barn blasted in overtime by North Texas. I mean, it was how bad, not that they just lost, but how bad each and every one of those losses were for the Big Ten.
It's just, for Iowa, I'm biased, but I'm going to say, remember, Oregon didn't play a game before, okay? So
which I thought was going to help Iowa.
See, I thought it was going to hurt Iowa.
Okay, fair enough.
So at least I was right about something.
Yes, you were.
That nothing else. So I just think, I mean, Rutgers, the way they played against Houston, the way they blew it at the end, that was the most Rutgers thing of all time.
I forgot about Rutgers. About Rutgers.
Yeah, I'm happy you forgot about Rutgers because it was the most Rutgers moment of all time ever. I was just like watching this like collapse, and I was like, "You're gonna blow this."
Lucy, they were up 9 with under 5 minutes left, and they did not attempt an entire free throw the entire second half. They didn't shoot one free throw the entire second half, and they played like how you were coached to play when you were 6 in rec ball when there's no shot clock, and it's just like hold the ball, kids, and pass it around the perimeter, and hopefully they don't take it away. For the final 5 minutes, they did that.
It is literally the most Rutgers thing of all time. Like, I was just watching that game, and I was like, I knew. I said, Rutgers going to find a way to blow this. They're going to find a way to blow this. So thank you, Rutgers, for that. Illinois, I thought their defense, you know how I feel about Illinois. I hate them. But I just want to publicly, as sad as I was to see the Big Ten suck, I was happy to see Illinois lose. Word of advice, don't slap the floor if you're not going to defend, okay? Let's not do that. That was awesome, by the way. Awesome that they were slapping the floor and then just getting lit up by a 45-year-old man. So great moment for me. But I thought Illinois' defense did not look good against Loyola. Michigan State just
also up 5 with under 90 seconds left.
That was the most Michigan State thing of this year. It was like the entire Michigan State season just pushed together in one game. It was kind of one of those things where you're like part of me felt like this was going to happen, but I didn't want to believe it. And then it happened, and I was like, I'm not surprised at all. I'm just devastated.
I mean, it was so tough to just see the way that they lost in these games. And then obviously when you call yourself Big Ten Ben, or you, Lucy Rohden, who affiliates yourself strongly with Iowa and the Big Ten, and then you get all the haymakers just coming from everywhere. Everybody popping out of the woodwork. Yep. All my friends are like, we listened to you all year long on Locked On Big Ten. We had Purdue in our Sweet 16. And I'm like, yeah, listen, sucks for me too, folks. I don't know what to tell you. It was terrible. So Lucy, let's flip the script. Let's end off this Locked On Big Ten year in review of sorts, as we started with. Let's not cry because it's over. Let's smile because it happened, and look back on some of our favorite memories throughout this Big Ten basketball season. Do you have one that is at the top of your list?
Oh, that's a good question. Obviously, mine's going to be Iowa related, of course.
Right. Well, I have one with Iowa as well.
It was special to see Luka become the all-time leading scorer. That's something that I'll remember forever. So that's going to be my moment. It's definitely very, niche to Iowa, but I think anyone who watches basketball can appreciate how big of a deal that is and how fantastic Luka has been. So that's my moment.
I also love that moment as well because he made the first free throw to tie Roy Marble, the late, great Roy Marble, at the top of Iowa's all-time scoring list. And then you could tell he was nervous and airballed the second free throw, which would have given him the record at the time. But, of course, he later surpassed it in that game against Penn State in late February. But he even mentioned afterward, he was like, yeah, I knew the moment was happening, and I airballed the free throw. It was great. It's part of the fun that makes such a record-setting moment. And, of course, Luka Garza goes out the top of a lot of Iowa lists, but as their all-time program leading scorer. I think back to some of those great regular season games because we have to focus on the greatness of the regular season in the Big Ten Conference now. The game between Ohio State and Michigan in February on that Sunday, 92-87, incredible theater for about 38 and a half minutes. Just one of the best college basketball games you will ever see. I would also throw in the Friday night barn burner at the end of January, the only time we got it in the regular season, Illinois and Iowa. It was a great game, and Lucy Rohden shakes her head because it wasn't the outcome Iowa was looking for. Yeah, it's fair.
I don't think we played that game. I think you must have us mistaken. I don't think we lost Illinois this year. I don't think we played them at all.
No, didn't lose once.
No, if I remember correctly, the Big Ten said COVID, and we didn't play Illinois.
I think
it was a good call by the conference.
Sad we didn't get to play them. Happened twice. Yeah.
It never happened.
No, it's good though. I mean, it was a good game. I enjoyed it. Let's go back to some of the funnier memories as well. Do you remember when the Northwestern Wildcats started off the Big Ten Conference slate, a perfect 3-0, and found themselves in the top 25. That was one of my favorite memories of this year.
How could I forget? That was a great week. That was a great week. And, well, that was it.
That was it.
I like it. It was very Northwestern to okay, maybe. And they're like, never mind. No, I'm just kidding.
No. And then they lost 13 straight. And then they ended the year winning 3 straight heading into the Big Ten tournament. And then they lost in their first game in the Big Ten tournament. It did, to start off the year in Big Ten conference play, one of those 3 wins was against Michigan State. And it led Tom Izzo to say this was the most inept. I loved when he threw inept in his post-game press conference, the most inept performance he had seen in his entire career in East Lansing. If you can get Tom Izzo to use the adjective inept, you have done something very well, Northwestern.
I think another favorite moment from the season for me is just the roller coaster that was Michigan State. The unpredictability they brought, as horrible as it was in the postseason, so phenomenal during the regular season. Sure, maybe we won't even put up 40 against Rutgers, but are we going to beat Illinois? Yes. I just love it. I love the unpredictability of it. Michigan State, maybe they were terrible, maybe they were great. I have no idea, but I guess that's what makes it beautiful.
And then that's kind of it. Michigan State basketball presented by Rocket Mortgage. And the fact that Rocket Mark Watts is now gone and you never went with Rocket Mortgage Watts, that's a big travesty. One of my favorite things as well, every Monday throughout the Big Ten basketball season, checking the AP poll, because for 4 of the last weeks of the regular season, there was 4 Big Ten teams ranked in the top 10. So every Monday, refreshing the AP poll, it's like, oh, there's 4 of them again. Iowa, Illinois, Michigan, and Ohio State. It was so lovely to see them up there.
That was definitely a big memory for me too. I enjoyed living in the South during this year because it was so cool to see Duke, UNC fans, NC State fans, and look at them and be like, my basketball team, this group of a whole bunch of white guys from Iowa, are so much better than you. They are so much better than you. And it was just such a good moment for me.
I mean, it's incredible to say that because it's like, hey, we're QB Sneak University, but yet our basketball program is far superior to you. Breaking news on this Thursday, by the way, which was April Fool's when Lucy and I are recording, Roy Williams, the longtime North Carolina and Kansas head coach, announcing his retirement. Lucy Rohden is in North Carolina. Your immediate reaction?
I don't like UNC at all, but I think Roy Williams is a good coach. And I think that he's done great things for the UNC-Duke rivalry. As a Duke fan outside of the Big Ten, I'm excited. You didn't know that? You didn't know that?
Oh, I hate you so much right now. I like you
really
so
didn't
much
know
less
that?
than I did. Did you? Are you always?
Yeah, I've always been a Duke fan.
Not you sympathize with Duke?
Yeah. Do you not know the story?
I mean, I went to Syracuse, so I really hate Duke. So that kind of sucks.
Well, so I went to a Carolina game a couple years back when I was playing Carolina, and I got assaulted by a Carolina fan. An old man shoved me. That was fun. He started yelling.
I hate Carolina too now.
Yeah, Iowa started. So I was 16. I looked 12. I looked 12. That's very important for the story. And my brother was with me, and he was like 12, but he looked 8. And we're watching Iowa win. And so Carolina was ranked. Iowa was not. It was probably one of the ugliest basketball games I've ever seen. It was just a genuinely terrible basketball game, but Iowa beat UNC at the Dean Dome. So obviously, we go to the game, we're having fun. And me and my brother are cheering. We just beat Carolina on their home court. This was the first time that UNC had lost to an unranked team, I think ever. It had been forever. Right. And so we're cheering, and this old dude in front of me, he's 75. He's got his sweater vest on and his trophy wife who's like 50, but his plastic surgery up that her face isn't real. He turns around and he's like, "You're the reason that UNC lost this game." And I was like, "Oh, hold up, buddy. I don't know about that."
Yeah.
And he was like, "What makes you think that you can come and scream and cheer at a basketball game?" I was like, "I don't know. Maybe the fact it's a basketball game."
Yeah. Maybe it's a sporting event to be enjoyed, you old stooge.
And so he starts yelling at me, and he's like, "You're so disrespectful. I can't believe you come into the Dean Dome and you ruined this game. You ruined my experience." I was like, "All right, old man, sorry you lost. Get over it." And he pushes me back into my chair. And my dad did nothing. Nothing.
Where's Papa Rohden, a proud Iowa alum?
Yeah, well, I'm so mad at him for this to this day. He's sitting 2 or 3 seats down with his girlfriend, who, by the way, she wore an Iowa shirt. And then once UNC fans started being nasty to me, which that was going to happen, they're Carolina fans, she zipped up her jacket, and I said, I don't mess with her. So he's there with his girlfriend who is not a real Hawkeye, and so this dude shoves me, and my dad just straight up was like, just ignores it. My brother's there, what the what? But these two amazing Iowa fans had found us during the game and sat with us. So it was like me and my brother and then these two strangers, because I guess that's what we were doing. And she was a lawyer at Wake Forest, or like a professor of law at Wake Forest. Her name was Tiffany. If Tiffany's out there and listening to this, Tiffany, I
Shout
appreciate you.
Actually, Tiffany's reached out before. She's a huge Locked On Big Ten fan.
Tiffany, thank you. I have always wanted, I went back after the game and went to Wake Forest's School of Law website and tried to find her. But so he shoves me, he pushes me back, literally this old man, pushes me back. And she's like, "What are you doing? You just assaulted a minor." She's 12 years old. I was 16 at the time, but I was like, I'm not going to say anything. That ruins the moment. And he's like, "Well, she was cheering during this game." And she was like, "But you can't hit her for that. That's not allowed." And so security had to come because this old man shoved me. And then we left, and Carolina fans were yelling at me, harassing me. And I left that day. I wanted to go to UNC for college. That was my dream school, actually. I left that day. I said, I will never go to this school again. I hate this fan base. I hate this town. I hate the people. And then so, I would always cheer for UNC to lose. And then eventually that just became me cheering for Duke to win because it made UNC fans so mad. And so I became like a proud little Duke fan. And every time I meet other Duke fans, I'll tell them, I say, I didn't like Duke before. I didn't hate them or anything, but I like them because of how much I hate UNC. And they're like, "We love you. We want you here. That's great. Welcome to the fan base." And so, that's why I'm a Duke fan.
I will say this. I hate UNC. I'm cool with that. I'm all for that hate UNC bandwagon. I also hate Duke, so I cannot support your now pseudo fandom for Duke. I just want to say, as we focus back on the Big Ten Conference.
That's quite a story. Sorry.
That was beautiful. That's a fantastic story. Also speaks to the good-natured community of the Big Ten Conference, the fact that an Iowa grad and even a Wake Forest law professor were there to back you up. She was an Iowa grad. Shout out Tiffany. I know she's listening to Locked On Big Ten podcast. She subscribed, rate, 5-star, all that good stuff. But Lucy, I think we have to finish with this because in this incredibly challenging year, you have to give compliments where they are due to every part of the staff, players, training, everything that was involved in this year to make the Big Ten run. They played 136 out of the scheduled 140 Big Ten conference games. So shout out to everybody involved in the Big Ten to give us some enjoyment and some excitement throughout this incredibly difficult winter and get to watch some Big Ten basketball. So that will be my lasting memory from the Big Ten basketball season. Also, Minnesota being so good at home, but really bad away. That was kind of funny too. Anyway, a great Big Ten basketball season overall. We have tied a bow on it. Sign, seal, deliver. It is done. We look forward to spring football and all that great stuff that comes with it. Lucy Rohden, thank you very much for your time. Lucy Rohden, if you do not know, when are you going to, I don't want to spoil anything. I'm just going to say she's a great, she's a great sports media personality for
This would be way more
Wave.tv.
fun.
Well, it's coming out tomorrow, so go ahead if you want to.
So it can just be, you can break it. I don't care who breaks the news.
Ooh, breaking news.
All
Breaking
my
news
friends,
exclusive.
all my friends already know. So that's what really matters. I accepted a full-time job for Wave TV, and I'm moving to California after my brother's high school graduation. So please cyberbully Jack and encourage him to go to Iowa. He's deciding schools. That's where I want him to go. So I'm full-time. I'm moving out there in June. And you can catch my TikToks and all their stuff and your salary plus benefits. I mean, what more could you want?
Those benefits, man.
That's living.
The good stuff. Lucy Rohden, the one they call Lucy Sports Jokes, now a full-time sports media personality for Wave TV, doing incredibly funny stuff, not just in the Big Ten, but across all the spectrum of sports. Lucy, as always, thank you very much for your time. It was fun to look back one final time on the Big Ten basketball season with you.
This was always my favorite podcast ever.
Oh, thank you so much. You and Tiffany, your favorite podcast. Fantastic.
Oh, love her.